tension between Russia and Ukraine. Russia Defense Ministry says some troops positioned on the border with Ukraine are returning to their bases after completing drills. This raises hopes of possible de-escalation, but large-scale drills continued, and it is unclear how many units are being withdrawn. Ukraine has said until there is noticeable decrease in the size of troops, it will be on guard. We have more in this report.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has arrived in Moscow to meet President Vladimir Putin in a high-stakes mission to avert war, saying he will hammer home the message from the West that they are open to dialogue about Russia's security concerns, but will impose sanctions if it invades Ukraine. Meanwhile, President of the European Union, Roberta Metsola, gave a statement before opening the Parliament session in Strasbourg, in which she addressed the Ukraine situation.
The position of this House is clear. Mes Ukrainiu, we are with Ukraine. Ukraine is a sovereign state that must be free to decide on its future for the benefit of its people. No one should undermine that right. We are united in our respect for Ukraine's independence and territorial integrity. While we urge for a de-escalation of the current tension, this Parliament stands ready to support swift, forceful and concrete action. We do this in coordination with other European institutions and the international community should the situation deteriorate.
During a socially distanced TV appearance on Monday, Mr. Putin asked his Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov if there was a chance to reach an agreement with the West, or whether the diplomacy was an attempt to drag Russia into an endless negotiation process. Mr. Lavrov replied that the possibilities are far from being exhausted, and though they should not continue indefinitely, but suggested continuing and ramping negotiations up. The comments are being seen as a clear concession that talks could ease the tensions. But analysts say that without either side moving over the thorny issue of Ukraine potentially joining NATO, there is still deadlock.
And joining us on the word now to discuss the ongoing tension in the Russian-Ukraine border is an international affairs analyst, Boye Akinoku. He joins me from Texas, United States. Good to have you join us. Boye, if you can hear me, can you hear me, Boye?
Yes, I can.
All right. Good to have you join us. Good afternoon. So we're seeing the Russia has now announced with some level of, not total withdrawal, but pulling back of some troops, which Russia says has now completed the drills in the Russia-Ukraine border. Some people say that this is a signal of de-escalation, but others are urging for cautious optimism. What do you lie? Do you think that we're beginning to see some sort of de-escalation in that region?
Okay, good afternoon once again. Yes, it seems things all the conversations that the world leaders have been having with the Russian president seems to be yielding some fruit. It looks like we have started seeing this de-escalation, but like the British government, all the other world powers are saying they need to see a proper plan and ensure that this is followed through. Troops seem to be withdrawing from the borders, but there's still a whole lot of troops at the borders of Ukraine, and that's why the world leaders are kind of cautious, but that's some encouraging news coming from Kremlin this morning.
Can we really say it is encouraging if you picture the Russian president as someone who likes to play mind games? Can you say that this is encouraging? It's almost like giving you something and then taking something away, because again, nobody can ascertain at this moment the numbers of troops that have been withdrawn or put back, whether it is significant enough to call it a de-escalation. So can you actually say that this is encouraging?
Yes, it's still encouraging news, because where it's the first signal that we are seeing from Kremlin saying things might go the right way everybody is hoping for. better than the mountain of more troops coming in and all that. So it's still better than where we were before.
But what do you think Russia needs to do to reassure leaders in the West? Because he's been sending, again, like I said earlier, there have been a lot of mixed signals coming from Russia. But what exactly do you think Russia needs to do to reassure the West?
If Russia comes out to give us a timeline saying, okay, we have this number of troops, we are withdrawing this number by this date, that's going to encourage the world leaders and say, okay, something positive is coming up. But right now, like I said, it's just they have announced that they are withdrawing troops, but we don't have the number. If they come with a proper timeline and number of troops and everybody can see those movements in the right direction, then the world leaders will be much happier with that.
And Russia also has some demands. For example, Russia wants some security guarantees in Europe. Russia is also asking that NATO be denied membership, Ukraine should be denied membership into NATO. And there are those who are now calling for some level of compromise from Ukraine, and saying that Ukraine should stop talking about how much it wants to be a part of NATO, because that seems to set Russia on the edge. Do you I mean, Ukraine is a foreign country, a sovereign country rather, that can decide to join any group that it wants to join. But do you think that that's valid, that Russia should also get something in return?
The issue of Russia saying Ukraine must not join NATO, it's entirely up to Ukraine as a sovereign nation, like you said. Russia has a lot to lose, even if they ensure that Ukraine does not join NATO. Their gas supply into Europe, oil supply, and all that. All those are things that Russia will gain if there's any kind of invasion. It's going to affect the pipeline from Russia to Germany that's coming up. It's an expensive venture that's been carried out. So Russia still has a whole lot of other things to lose if they insist on the Ukraine or they invade Ukraine. So it's not the option of saying Ukraine must not join NATO. I don't think anybody wants to hear that as a sovereign nation. So I don't think that's really up for conversation at this point.
Is it just Russia that has something to lose? When you look at what's happening right now, I was looking at the figures today, was seeing that the crisis is also showing uncertainty into the market. When you look at how there is an uncertainty in just the global market, we're also seeing how that is taking impact or affecting Ukraine's economy. There is some level of global uncertainty. People are rushing to sell stocks. People are worried what would happen. It is creating some level of, again, uncertainty around the world. So it's not just Russia that has something to lose. Isn't the world already losing even without a war, not to think of an invasion?
You're very correct. Russia is not the only one that's going to lose something. If the invasion goes on and there's escalation and things get out of hand, and everyone has something to lose, and that's why it's better this is de-escalated and things are managed properly.
And as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, we are witnessing now a very wobbly global economic recovery. Some countries are doing better than others, but I mean, in general terms, it is not good. But what impact do you think that this talk about war, invasion, because again, we're hearing that the speculations that the invasion, Ukraine has said that invasion might likely be on Wednesday. When you hear talks like this, when investors hear talks like this, it does take a hit. What do you think that the overall impact of this could mean for an economy, global economy that is struggling to recover?
Yeah, it's going to have a huge impact because it's going to start with the European market. They already reacted negatively. This year was supposed to be the rebound. Loans that were taken to fight the coronavirus impact. There were loans given to various countries. Any kind of escalation between Russia and Ukraine, if it affects the gas market, the oil market, it's going to have an eventual market on the. It's going to have an effect on the markets in all those other European countries, and that will be something that will affect the world economy as a whole, because anything that hits Europe, it's going to affect the whole world at the end of the day. So it's going to be negative. The effects of all of this is going to be negative on Europe and the world at large. So yeah.
And we will continue to monitor developments in that region, whether this is signals of de-escalation or whether it is a reason for cautious optimism. But we'll figure that out in days to come. Thank you so much for talking to us. International Affairs Analyst Boye Akinyokun.
Thank you very much for having me.